Thought is useful when it motivates action and a hindrance when it substitutes for action. So when thinking about something helps you to be productive, it's good. But when it's a substitute for doing something, it's bad. And that's what we find a lot of the time. Me personally, I find it in my own experience that a lot of the time what we're doing is, instead of doing something, we're thinking about it. And this is what we call the never-ending planner. I'm going to organize myself. Instead of doing any work, I open my diary, I write down all my commitments for the day, I write down my commitments for tomorrow, I write down my commitments for the next day, I organize some of my emails, I put them in the right folders, and I didn't do anything all day. All I did was just to substitute action for sitting around and pretending like I'm doing something. So if this organization actually really genuinely saved you time and made you productive, it was worth it. But most of the time it doesn't save you time or make you more productive. Actually, all it does is just substitute doing something. So, the never-ending to-do list. What are you doing today? I'm doing my to-do list. What are you doing tomorrow? I'm writing my to-do list. What are you doing the next day? I'm going to write my to-do list. And forever, you're just writing your to-do list. And it makes you feel good because it makes you feel like you did something. You feel really productive, like, look, I made a to-do list. But you realize when the month went by that all you did last month is just make to-do lists, nothing else. And another quote, the key to managing all of your stuff is managing your actions. So at the end of the day, everything comes down to the next action. Like right now, what is my next action when I've finished talking to you here today in front of the camera? What is my next action? It can only be one thing. I can't usually do two things at the same time. What's the next single one thing that I'm going to do? If I can manage that, so I always or mostly choose the most beneficial thing to do next, and I really try to choose what is going to be the most productive and beneficial, then if I can manage that, it all comes down to that. But actually, if you look outwards, actions take you further in your projects take you further in your long-term goals, and all of that feeds into the useful information you have at hand and the ability to do things quickly and all of that. But ultimately, it all comes down to, what are you going to do next? What's your next step? The next quote that I wrote, there's usually an inverse relationship between how much something is on your mind and how much it's getting done. So something which is on your mind all day and every day is usually something that you're not doing very much on. Because if you were doing a lot on it, it wouldn't be on your mind. The reason it's on your mind is I must not forget to submit that document today. I must not forget to submit that document today. I must not forget to submit that document. I must not forget to. Generally, the reason you're doing that is because you haven't done it yet. If you had done it, it wouldn't be the thing that's going on your mind all the time. The next quote, you need no new skills to increase your productivity and reduce your stress, just an enhanced set of systematic behaviors with which to apply them. I really like that. And I think that what's really nice about that is you don't need to be somebody different. You can be disorganized. You can be someone who is quote unquote creative. You can be a person who is, liable to get lost in a project. You can be, you're just you. But generally, if you can have systematic and a habit that you stick to in organizing your projects, you'll be absolutely fine, inshallah, with the help of Allah. The next quote, one of the best tricks for enhancing your productivity is having organizing tools you love to use. And I wrote that one down because if you don't really enjoy the process of organizing yourself, or you don't have tools you like, they're probably the wrong tools. So for example, you may find that, the best and the latest gadget for organizing yourself, the latest app that has got 5-star reviews from thousands of people, is just the best thing ever. But in the end of the day, if it doesn't work for you and it doesn't make you more organized, it doesn't matter how good it looks. Sometimes you've got these apps and reminders and notes and calendars and everything. You just look at it instantly and it tells you what you need to do today. But if it's not working for you, maybe you'd be better off with a piece of paper. Maybe you like stationery. Maybe you want to have a nice, pretty colored piece of paper. Or maybe you want to have different colors, stuck on your wall. Whatever works for you. But if you're using something and it's not really making you more productive and you are applying a system to it, but it's not really helping you, it's probably the wrong tool. The next quote, things you name, you own. Collected but unknown stuff owns you. So the idea is that you really need to name things. And that could be projects that are just like vague, this vague thing of like, it's just a vague idea in your head and it's not properly sort of written down and organized. And also all the junk you collect that you have no idea what it belongs to. So even if you had like loads of bills that needed to be paid and you're really stressed about them, but you labeled them bills to be paid, that in itself would give you a sense of ownership and control over it. But if, for example, you just had a pile of letters on your desk and you know there's some really urgent bills in there and there's some really urgent projects in there, yeah, it's gonna, in the end of the day, it's gonna stress you out. Manage the commitments of others before their avoidance creates a crisis. So you can tell why I wrote this one, because this is another personal issue for me. Manage the commitments of others. Now, I really like the word manage here. It doesn't say fulfill the commitments of others, but actually manage them. Don't be frightened to call someone up and say, Habibi, I told you that I was going to deliver this project by the end of the month, but I've decided to give it another couple of weeks. So I just wanted to let you know about that. That in itself is far better than breaking a promise. I mean, obviously, it's ideal Islamically not to make that promise in the first place, or to make it clear to someone that it's a best effort basis, which I try to do now. I'll say to someone, I will try to do it by the end of the month, but I'm not able to promise you. But it's nice to be able to manage those commitments, just to be on top of it, right? I know I'm late on this. Let me just drop them a message and say, look, I know I'm late on this. I'm working on it, inshallah ta'ala. But this idea of just promising others to feel better is also in itself creates a crisis. So being able to manage the commitments of others. And that includes also knowing who you're waiting for. Sometimes you're waiting for someone to do something and your work depends on their work. Being able to control that and manage it, knowing when to kind of remind them and things like that, it's very, very useful. My next quote, the inherent danger in the digital world is how much data can be spread in so many different places so easily, without any coordinating links. So what you have is you just have data everywhere, stuff everywhere. And that is really difficult to manage. And the more stuff you have, the more inputs you have, the less easy it is to organize them. So if, for example, a person said, everything I deal with by email, it's not practical. They said everything. I don't take a task from my manager at work. I don't take a discussion with my family. I don't arrange anything for the masjid. I don't do a lecture. I don't do anything unless I have an email for it. That in a certain degree is easier to manage than having, or you message me on WhatsApp, I don't check WhatsApp. Or, this came by this, somebody spoke to you over here, somebody knocked on the door and came in and asked you to do something. It's really important today. One of the challenges we face is just having stuff everywhere. So being able to kind of bring it all into one place. So the idea of your organization system is not to necessarily cut down on all those, although cutting down on some of them might be useful, but actually just to be able to manage it in a single place, to have a single set of next actions, a single list of things, which gathers together whatever has happened on WhatsApp, on Telegram, on email, on phone calls, on voicemails, on work commitments, on family issues, on everything. Shopping list, whatever it might be, all of it is in a single system that is managing the whole lot. And that system should be as light as possible, that's for sure. If the system takes longer to use than the app does, or the messaging app or whatever, you're not going to use it. Like if it's just a case that 1 second, somebody wrote me a WhatsApp message, let me copy that down onto a piece of paper, and then let me just make sure that I've put a flag in my calendar to answer that message, in 10 minutes time. It's not really practical, but something that's very lightweight that can bring together all of those things and make sure that they're not stressing you. That is also very useful. The next quote, and I really like this one, there are no interruptions, there are only mismanaged inputs. So there are no interruptions. Those interruptions can come from other people or from yourself, but generally the reason that those things happen is that you don't have a way of managing them. That's the problem. Someone knocks on your door and says, look, I really need your help with this, but I'm right in the middle of something urgent. You don't have a way of managing it. You don't have a way of pausing what you're doing and coming back to it. You don't have a way of telling that person to come back next week. You don't have any, they don't have any confidence in you. Or when you say to them that come back to me tomorrow, that you're going to be organized and ready for them. So in other words, the real problem is not someone knocking on your door and saying to you that I need your help, or can you please stop what you're doing? It's just that you don't have a system for it. And sometimes you have no choice. Your manager at work knocks on your door and says, look, we need this done now. There's no time. Drop what you're doing. If you don't have a system that can cope with that situation, it's likely to cause you a feeling of being constantly interrupted. I couldn't get my work done because of this, and I'm super stressed because my manager told me to do something else and I'm not ready for it, and blah, blah, blah. But actually, what the real problem is you just don't have a system to manage your interruptions. And then the next quote that we have, trying to manage from the top down when the bottom is out of control may be the least effective approach. So the top down method, we often hear about that, and we often try to do it where we try to fix things from the top. Let me just work out what my vision is for the next 10 years or whatever. If the bottom is out of control, the stuff you do at the top is not likely to be effective. So the key is to get in control of your day-to-day tasks so that your planning for the future is actually, inshallah ta'ala, more effective. If you're not totally sure what your job is, it will always feel overwhelming. And that doesn't mean your job at work. Even if you don't know what your project is, you don't know what your task is part of, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what the goal is, that is something which is going to make you feel overwhelmed. And finally, pick battles big enough to matter and small enough to win. And this is part of your idea of what you choose and how do you prioritize your tasks. So it's a very famous way of prioritizing your tasks. You've got big wins versus easy wins, right? So you've got things that are super easy to do. They maybe don't help you that much, but they are really, really easy to do. And you've got things that are really, really important to do. And what you try to do is to find somewhere in the middle. That will always be your most efficient. Somewhere in the middle. Something that's big enough that it really does help you, but small enough that you can actually do it without feeling overwhelmed.